So I'm trying to do it this way to make sure it uploads.
So Orthodox King, I think it is. If anybody knows what that flag is, that's it's where my ancestors came from one side of the family. I figured a new background would spice things up a little bit. But In the Shadow of the Sword is a great book. It's a good book. I don't particularly like, I forget his name here, Persian Fire and Rubicon. Well, whatever. This book is a great book. Hidden Origins of Islam. And you can see that there's a Greek inscription of a cross, one of the earliest Muslim things, and their coins had iconography on them. Up until Abdul Malik, and even the Dome of the Rock seems to be talking about Christ. Oh, guess what? Here's an early Islamic coin. Well, here are some early Islamic coins. They have pictures of men on them, which is, haram. But there's a particularly interesting one. It's not the most interesting, but it is an interesting one. That's the Jewish lampstand known as the menorah. But the interesting coins are ones like these. Coins they minted. This is under Muawiyah. Here's some more of their coins. Notice all of the depictions of men and crosses. And the early inscriptions are pretty damning as well. On with it again. I believe this is for Orthodox King. Here's the landscape. Right? I know it's backwards because it's a computer. Here's the Byzantines. We see the Ghassanids and the Lakhmids.
Not anymore because I'm recording it.
This was a Monophysite Christian kingdom. This was a pagan kingdom whose last king embraced Christianity.
And that was a Christian kingdom too.
And there were heavy wars between the Christians and the Jews and the Samaritans.
Skirmishes.
Kind of like scuffles and stuff like that. And then you have the Sasanian Empire over here. Now the Quran, all the flora and fauna of the Quran, even where it takes place. Oh, here's a better picture of it, of religions in the area. Not to mention that Ethiopia was a Christian kingdom at this time, and actually...
Let me pause this. What I was going to say is all the flora and the fauna of the Quran don't match Saudi Arabia or Mecca, which is supposed to be located here. It only matches the Mediterranean. And not to mention that there's one geographical distance given in the Quran, and it says, daily you walk past the cities that God destroyed, that Lot abandoned. So they were right by the Dead Sea. So all the flora and fauna of the Quran shows that the preacher, whoever he was, who was giving these recitations, was living here. And the early Qiblas show that as well. So I just wanted to add that.
They had to invade and take over because of the massacre of the Christians at Najran after they were given assurance of safety by Du Nawas, also known as Yusuf, who was a Jew. So the Jews were slaughtering the Christians.
This is in the Quran as well.
So they came in. But yeah, this shows you a bit about the Ghassanids, the Lakhmids, the Byzantines, and the Persians are Zoroastrians are depicted as fire, or the Macedonians. Here's a picture of the tribes. Notice, wrap it up, I don't know. Banu Taman, that's the Edomites. And up here you can see the Lakhmid and Ghassanid kingdoms.
Also Banu Tay. Those are Edomites.
Arabic culture is the first to spread throughout the Middle East. 2nd century was ethnically Arab Christians such as the Ghassanids, the Lakhmids, and the Banu Judim began migrating into northern Arabian desert and the Levant. The Arabic language gained greater prominence with the rise of Islam in the 7th century AD as the language in the Quran. Here's a rendition of the Ghassanid soldiers, an artist's depiction. And then here's a picture of Melania Trump for no reason at all. Yet another one. And then we have the Ascension. And St. Simeon, Stylite. What do these have to do with Islam? But with the Quran specifically, the Hadith was written 300 years later. So was all the autobiographies, the Sirah, not autobiographies, biographies. But Al-Kahf, the cave, is about the 7 holy sleepers of Ephesus. Minarets, it came about because of the Stylites. Stylites would preach on these pillars, but they'd also call people to prayer, because remember, there were 3 daily prayers. There still are. I mean, in Orthodoxy, morning, noon, and night, right? The Trisayon. Morning prayers, the Creed. Midday prayers, and evening prayers. Now, the Quran says to pray 3 times a day, but they pray 7.
5. They pray 5.
Yeah, say they do, but they combine it, so it's actually 3. So they do.
I said 7 because that's what monasteries do, and that's what Zoroastrians were doing for some time. It's actually 5 times a day that the Sunni pray. Sorry, but the Quran says to pray 3 times a day.
The 7 prayers, but they combine them. Yeah, it came out of a form of Lakhmid, Christo-paganism. It was from the Lakhmids, right, who had recently become Christian, but kind of didn't know how. And their holy place, I'm writing a book about this, so a lot of these ideas might get stolen. Their holy place was the house that Abraham built. Bethel means house of God, and he built it. Or he built a stone structure there. And Jacob, later at Bethel, there was a stone structure. They interpret this as the Quran, and the Oaks of Mamre were very sacred.
They interpret it as the Kaaba.
It was sacred to the Christians, the Jews, and the pagans, and the Rahmani, a group of people who believed in Abraham, Moses, and Jesus, but weren't Christians or Jews, but called God Al-Rahman, the most merciful, or the most beneficent. This is the first line in every surah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. And they largely lived in the Sinai. And their holy things were living rock carved into cubes and having little sayings on them. Also, I've got tons of pictures, I don't have them on me, of Kaabas that were built, ones that were constructed, not out of living rock, constructed by the Zoroastrians. Like, there's at least 7 still existing to this day. But yeah, it was a form of Judaized Christianity. straight and simple. That's what it was. It was the Alkazites. If you look at what the Alkazites believed about the book that came down from heaven, the true gospel that came down from heaven by this 40-foot angel, that's the Injil that they talk about, and that's also the Quran. A lot of times they get the Quran, because the Quran is the recitation. So when it talks about the book and the holy books that God will never change, they'll never be changed, it's talking about the Torah and the gospel throughout the Injil. And why they think there's only one gospel is because of Tatian's diatessaron, and then the use of the diatessaron up until the time of Islam. In Islam, the iconography battle with the iconoclasts and the iconophiles was going on in Christendom at this time, and it went on in the Ishmaelite or Hagarenes. They weren't yet called Muslims yet. They're the Tayyat, Banu Tay, remember? So the Saracens had the same issue. And what were the first monuments they erected? Well, from the Mandaeans, the first shrine they erected was to the severed head of John the Baptist, right? And then they built the Dome of the Rock. And now, if you read what's in the Dome of the Rock, it talks all about Jesus. And there's one mention of Muhammad, and says Muhammad is not the son of God, he's only a prophet. Well, nobody ever claimed that this guy, Abu al-Qasim, whose title was Muhammad, praised one or praised be, was God or the son of God, but it was of Jesus. And we know that Moses, Jesus, and God were all called Muhammad before Abu al-Qasim ever existed, or the rise of Islam or the Saracens. So facing east, praying towards the holy city, even the way they pray, if you look at the way the Syrian Church of the East prays their Good Friday prayer, is identical to the Muslims. I mean, look at the first mosques that they built. They're just like Orthodox churches. So yeah, there's a joke. We say in the West, like in the East, the Roman Catholics got the Calvinists, right? For the Eastern Orthodox, our Calvinists are Muslims. Sorry, this is kind of just from the hip. I do have pictures of other Kaabas floating around here. All right, peace to you, brother.
Also, thank you so much for the question. I can't thank you enough. All right, peace to you, brother.